Hey there. After the December 12th election, it is now almost certain that the United Kingdom will be leaving the European Union in the coming months. A lot of pixels are being spilled on what exactly this means. What does British Prime Minister Boris Johnson really want? Now that he's got an expanded parliamentary majority, will he be able to get a better deal out of the EU? Is no-deal Brexit still a possibility? All of these questions are interesting, but I think they're obscuring a larger point that we should all pay a little more attention to. The disaster for Britain is Brexit itself, not the details of how it happens. The dangers of Brexit in the short term have been so oversold at this point that as long as it kills fewer people than the bubonic plague, the story is guaranteed to be that it was less damaging than expected. There will probably be dislocations and a horror story or two, but logistics is something we do very well this century. Nobody's going to starve here. More sober commentators have started to suggest that the threat is more medium-term than short-term, and Brexit could prompt a deep recession in the United Kingdom economy. Maybe, but I kind of doubt it. Churn can be good for economies. As supply chains are destroyed and reoriented, Britain could even see a brief surge of growth. I don't know, I'm not an economist. It could go either way. But the threat that I see from Brexit is not short-term or medium-term or even long-term, really. It's permanent. What we're talking about here is another death of the British Empire. My last Brexit video is rounding 1,000 comments, and I'm seeing some really fundamental misunderstandings of how the latter 20th century went. The idea seems to be that the common market and the EU somehow stole the UK's thunder. Before joining, the story seems to go, Britain had a powerful empire and amazing industries. Then they joined the EU and it all went to shit. That's almost the exact opposite of what really happened. The British didn't die in large numbers when their empire ended, the way the Indians, Kenyans, and many others did, but they did experience real costs. As Winston Churchill and many others had predicted, the end of British India in 1947 led to a precipitous drop in the United Kingdom's wealth, power, and prestige. Because of the Cold War, the United States was eager to prop the remnants of the British Empire up to help fight communism. But it never really worked. Britain spent decades trying to turn its formal imperial possessions into a British Commonwealth of less formal ties, the way the Brexiteers suggest. But that never really worked either. The more powerful countries preferred to go their own way in the name of nationalism, and fear of non-white migration kept the UK from truly embracing the poorer places. The Commonwealth exists, but it's fairly weak and meaningless. Britain has always tried to make the Commonwealth into a more powerful trading bloc, but the United States has always blocked it, because it would interfere with our informal empire of free trade. Brexit doesn't change any of that, it just makes Britain weaker in negotiations. What Britain had was a crisis of both formal and informal empire. Indian wealth and manpower had given the British the ability to formally occupy all those red bits on the map, but it had also allowed them to tie the entire world into a financial web of informal empire. Without India, and with the United States blocking all British attempts to set up new informal imperial ties, the British were in serious trouble by the end of the 1960s. The British kept telling everybody they were still a major power, but nobody believed it. With the 1956 Suez Crisis, the US humiliated them over their attempt to hang on to control in Egypt. In 1968, the UK Prime Minister announced the British withdrawal from the majority of their bases in the Middle East and Asia. Britain simply couldn't afford it anymore. Most of the remnants of Britain's formal empire disappeared during the 1960s as well. The 1970s and 1980s were a very grim time in Britain. Their industries had long been surpassed by other Europeans and the Japanese, and that made labor relations even worse. It may seem ridiculous today, but in 1987, the Italian economy became larger than the British economy. Britain, the country that had once dominated the world, was surpassed by the 21st century's sick man of Europe. Britain was falling out of the second tier of world powers. So what saved them? The European Union. Britain finally joined the EU's predecessor in January of 1973. It wasn't clear at the time, but with that accession, the British had picked up a shiny new informal empire. It took two other reforms to kick this new empire into high gear. The first was Margaret Thatcher's deregulation of the London financial markets in 1986, known as the Big Bang, and the second was the Maastricht Treaty of 1991 that turned the European Economic Community into the European Union. The treaty did a lot, but most importantly for Britain, it opened up the free flow of capital across Europe. Britain was a historic center of finance, and its 1980s deregulation meant that it won the battle for that industry in Europe. Thanks to the financial Big Bang and the Maastricht Treaty, Britain got a new empire. It was informal, but it was very real. London became a hub for all of European banking. And because banking is important, London got a whole bunch of other industries too. This was the genesis of the cool Britannia of Tony Blair. In 1997, the British economy became larger than the Italian economy once again, and it's been that way for most of the time since. The EU accession process that the Brexiteers hate so much was actually amazing for Britain. Brexit is going to end all this. The Brexiteers claim that London has all kinds of special expertise and skills that will keep their financial industry on top. That's just laughable. London finance is a big deal because of its central position in the European market. Brexit ends that. Sure, English is important to international business, but there are plenty of people in Frankfurt and Shanghai that speak English. I have friends in corporate London who tell me business is already slipping away, and the deal hasn't even been finalized yet. To pretend that London can hold on to its financial leadership without the European Union is to fundamentally misunderstand what finance is. More than any other line of business, finance is completely defined by regulations. If you lose your ability to control the rules, if you lose your connection to the bodies that make those rules, then your financial leadership will evaporate. New York isn't the financial capital of the United States because it's clever, but because it's big, and because for a range of historical and geographical reasons, it managed to capture a number of the U.S.'s financial regulatory functions. From the 1990s up until the day Brexit happens, London has the same power in Europe. The United States is and will probably remain New York's financial empire. With Brexit, the UK government is kicking its financial empire in Europe out the door. Singapore and Hong Kong have diminishing importance as financial capitals because nobody trusts China's legal system. Everybody trusts the Germans. To be clear, this result isn't going to be immediate. It's going to be a slow decline, but it's already happening. A trading floor will close in London, and a probably much smaller replacement will open up in Frankfurt. So much of finance is digital now that the management of trillions can change hands without anybody actually losing their job in the short term. But those trillions are already changing hands, and before too long, we're going to see massive job losses in the London financial sector, a tremendous loss of market share, and most importantly, a titanic loss of tax revenue. It's often been said that the United Kingdom is a financial industry with a country attached. Well, pretty soon it's just going to be a country. Brexit is the end of another British empire, and it's very hard to see what will replace it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And if you want to learn more about the concepts discussed in this video, I suggest you pick up my new book, Avoiding the British Empire, available now on the Amazon Kindle and in paperback form. Thanks.